Hey everyone, what is going on? Good evening to you. Welcome to That Man Show. My name is Curtis Brooks. I am your host and executive coach, specializing in transformational leadership for men. Guys, we got another great show for you, another hot topic for you. We're talking about transactional leadership isn't built to last. So why do we love it? Well, who doesn't love a free gift? We're going to, well, not necessarily a free gift, but who doesn't love the bonuses or the recognition. But nevertheless, we're going to get more into that. Before we do, I want to let you know that we are streaming to multiple platforms. First being our primary place of streaming, that's going to be LinkedIn here. So check us out on LinkedIn if you are available, have that time to join us. And also, before we kind of get started, I'm inviting you to join me on screen. So please do join me on the screen here. I left the link within the description. So let me see. I think I can put it in the comments here. Maybe let me make sure that I see the comments here before we get going here. Okay, there we go. All right. So give me just a moment. I'll go ahead and put the link in there. So, but we are streaming to, like I said, multiple platforms. We're streaming to YouTube at Men's Life Coaching on YouTube. Again, that's the @ Men's Life Coaching over on YouTube, and also on my personal page. That's Facebook. That's going to be under Curtis Brooks. So if you can't locate me there, you can absolutely find me over on YouTube. So check me out there on YouTube. So once again, let me go ahead and try and put the link in here in the chat here. So maybe you guys can, if you are so inclined to join me on screen here, please do so. Let's have a discussion. We're going to be talking about transactional leadership isn't built to last. So why do we love it? And as I stated earlier, who does not love a bonus or something, or two or three, or just name recognition? But we know that it's not built to last. So with that being said, let's get started here. Uh, Transactional leadership. Let's give the definition of transactional leadership. Well, we can come to a summation or idea what a leader is. And so we're going to toss in that leader who is and somewhat maybe passive and somewhat, we'll get more into that in just a bit here. But the definition, or at least my definition of, or what I've put together as definition of a transactional leader, is one who one who bases his leadership style uh, on transactions. So basically, if you give him this, he'll give you this, or they'll give you a bonus or an opportunity to have your name recognized or something or of some sort for your loyalty, for your time put on the job, for your time completing the task, whatever the case might be. But they're the kind of leader that will basically, on my notes here, that says, you do this for me and I'll do this for you. You wash my hands, I'll wash your hands. But as I stated, or the description here, is that kind of leader, or that leadership style, is not always um, it's not built to last for various reasons. So let's talk about the characteristics of this particular leadership style. Again, that transactional leader. Uh, One, his leadership style is contingent upon his or her leadership style is contingent upon rewards, meaning that he or she has, excuse me, he or she has a reward to offer you if you complete the task. And in most cases, this particular leader is focused on more the transaction, or more the effectiveness and effectiveness and the completeness of the job. Basically, working, and in most cases working with timelines, strict timelines. And so you're going to get more so this transactional leader. But here's where it's important to understand that this particular leader, or this style of leadership, where that it is it's nice to, as I stated earlier, it's nice to get the different bonuses, name recognition. And years ago, Hey, brother Wayne, what's going on, brother? How are you, man? Thanks for joining over on LinkedIn. Years ago, I worked a particular job, many when I was in I think my 20s or late 20s or something of that sort. But I worked a job where, not a call center, but kind of like it was what the heck was it? It was a collections agency. And I worked another job similar to that where you'd help people with with winning prizes and stuff like that. But it was, I wasn't very good at that. I wasn't very good at that. But in this particular collections job I worked, I found myself having to coerce the people to pay their bill. And some bills were absolutely just astonishing in what they owed, but nevertheless, my job was to try to coerce them in paying their bill. But I found that very difficult because it just was not me. It was not me. I'm kind of more of a, yeah, I'm not a hard person like that. I'm just, but again, there are times where you absolutely need to be that person. There's times where you absolutely need to be that transactional leader because you have a job that needs to get done and it needs to be done effectively. But here's the thing about this. Can the transactional leader get quality work out of his employees for the sake of the transaction? Can that transactional leader depend on his employees to give him quality work? That's the question. And it's transactional, and as a transactional leader, maybe even as parents, we have to operate in that role as transactional leaders. And I find myself, especially with a girl, a baby girl, giving in a lot of times. My wife says that, at least this is what her mom says, that that my daughter has me wrapped around her finger like bacon wrapped around a potato. So I had to absolutely, that was hilarious. But uh, though I'd like to deny it, but uh, she does. Hey, Jeremy, thank you for listening over on LinkedIn, man. Thank you for joining, and happy that you're here as well, man. Thank you. We're talking about transactional leadership isn't built to last, so why do we love it? So you absolutely invited. I didn't put that link in the screen here. It is in the comments. So if you guys are so inclined to join me on let me see here, copied here. Join me over here on LinkedIn. Uh, I just I just placed the Zoom link in here. So if you're so inclined to join me over on LinkedIn, you're more than welcome to. I would love to have you on stage here with me, just having this conversation. We're talking about transactional leadership isn't built to last. So why do we love it? So as I was stating earlier, as a father to a 2-year-old daughter, in most cases, our daughters as fathers, our daughters, figuratively speaking and literally speaking, uh, it can feel like they have us wrapped around their fingers, all 10 fingers. And I think that's the situation that I'm in. My baby girl has me wrapped around all 10 fingers. And it's hard to get out of that grip. It's hard to get out of that grip, especially, um, especially when you don't want to say no. And I find myself as a father, as a leader, having to get myself out of that particular situation or to get her to do the things that I want her to do to be, just follow my instructions, Dad, Bella, do XYZ. And so I find myself having to be that transactional parent. And it is difficult. And I know that we're talking about adults, we're talking about grown people here. But the reality of it is that it also applies to us in situations, even as leaders. And uh, talked about the transactional leader again, the characteristics of that transactional leader being contingent upon rewards. This leader says, hey, I'll give you this, you do this for me, I'll give you this. The other part of this is this characteristic of this transactional leader is that he or she is focused on the short term, meaning that he or she has a primary goal to accomplish. And in doing that goal or meeting that goal, their objective is to complete that goal effectively and efficiently as possible. And my question is that, and completing that job uh, efficiently, can we count on our subordinates to complete that job efficiently because of the exchange that we're making? Uh, and I think here's the other piece of it. The more that we're having to give in the sense of this transactional leader, the more that we're having to give in the sense of this transactional leader, we can find ourselves at some point um, affecting the loyalty, and that are the employees or the employee, is he or she loyal to you, actually a good employee, though you or may be able to count on them to do the job efficiently and effectively. Maybe they do a stellar job at it, but is this employee uh, loyal to you? Or is he or she only loyal to the gifts that you are giving? The gifts that you, or not so much just the gifts, but the exchange that you are prepared to make for them. And I think the other piece of it too, getting down to more the deeper element of the uh, transactional leader, is the transactional leader, is he or she uncomfortable with being that person who who may need to crack the whip, so to speak. Pardon the in the manner I've shared that, but uh, is he or she in a place where, or mentally in a space where they're uncomfortable with taking their rightful position and saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm not going to exchange XYZ for with you in order for you to get this job done." So I think on a deeper level, this transactional leader um, perhaps is dealing with, uh, and even as a parent, having to deal with the fact that uh, I have, especially working with my daughter, I have guidelines. I have set these borders up, so to speak, in regards to, hey, what I'm not going to cross. And the challenge is that as a parent and even as a leader, we can feel the pressure that the job needs to get done, the task needs to be complete. And when I'm dealing with a 2-year old, I feel the pressure. And even as leaders now, we can feel the pressure of just feeling like someone's forcing your hand. And that's kind of how I feel with my 2-year old daughter. I feel like someone's forcing my hand. And perhaps as a leader, this is what you might be feeling like, that someone's forcing your hand in that space where it's that if I don't give XYZ, they're not going to respond appropriately. They're not going to get the job done. And I think the other piece of it is that there is the illusion of control. That's the other piece of this transactional leader, is that there's the illusion of control. The transactional leader has a tendency, again, from a psychological perspective, I believe that this transactional leader has a tendency to believe that he or she is in control. And much like I just shared with you in regards to how I'm at sometimes not very effective dealing even with my 2 year old daughter, uh, it can at times feel like, again, the illusion of control, but in fact, I don't feel like I'm in control at times, a lot of times, because I've allowed myself to cross that line. And she, not that she's done anything or said, but the pressure from the tears, the pressure from just the stuff around me. My wife says to me, "Babe, you need to be a lot more stricter with her." And it's not always easy. And again, even as adults working and operating in this space, it's not always easy. It's not always easy. Wayne says over here on LinkedIn, transactional leaders work with rewards and punishment based performance, hard to build your real loyalty. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And that is absolutely very true. And I think I mentioned it earlier in regards to that transactional leader being uh, having loyal employees. Are they actual loyal employees, or are his employees just in it for the rewards? And is the transactional leader effective? Not necessary in what he or she is offering as a reward to get the employee to do the job, to complete the task, but is the transactional leader effective as a leader? And as I stated earlier, it can give the illusion of control, because I at times where a really quick story here. Many years ago, I worked as a flight attendant, and we had an issue where the uh, passenger was saying that the water was continuous to run in the lavatory on the aircraft, and me and another flight attendant, were flying together. We were just fresh out of training. This is many years ago. We're fresh out of training, and I remember during our it should hey Jeremy, thanks again for thanks for liking the topic here, but you should be able to join, man. Maybe you sh- yeah, you should be able to join with no issue, man, on the link that I have provided. I thought I hold on a second here. Did I? Yeah, you should be able to join with a link, man. You might have to copy and paste the link, grab it from the LinkedIn comments here, or also even click on the comments, click on the link within the comments or the description of the broadcast. You should be able to. Yeah, you should have not. You shouldn't have an issue with joining. Yeah, that's why sometimes doing these shows, man, you definitely need a producer. So for sure, absolutely. So in this story I was sharing with you about my flight experience, just as a new flight attendant, the passenger was complaining that the water was continuous to run after they were washing their hands in the lavatory on the aircraft. And then so I can remember during the training, me and the other flight attendant, we were just like fresh on the line. Is kind of the language that we use. Okay, no problem, Jeremy. Thank you. No problem. Okay. Yeah, we were actually fresh on the line, and just as new flight attendants. And so one of the training videos that what we call the CBT's computer based training. One of the videos shared that, hey, this is what you do when you have an issue such as what we were having at the water. The passenger was complaining that the water was continuously running in the lavatory. So the videos, the video shared with us that this is what you do in this particular situation. The water's running, and so I followed, in my mind, I followed the instructions to the T, and nothing was happening. And so at some point, I remembered that in the video it said that if the water is still running after you've done XYZ, here you can go to the main lavatory in the front of the cabin, the first class area, and then you can turn the lever either to the left or the right. I can't remember. And I turned the lever, and there were actually two levers, and I couldn't turn one, and yet the other one turned. And so here I turned the one that was turning. I think I turned it left or right. I can't remember. But once I turned the lever, and I felt a sense of accomplishment. So I said to the flight attendant, because I was working the main what they call the first flight attendant position, and I said, okay, go ahead and check the water. And I mean, really, I felt like I was kind of like beating on my chest. I felt like I fixed this thing. It was illusion of control. But come to find out that I actually had dumped all that water off the aircraft, and I know it's a crazy story, but I'm talking about the illusion of control. And here I was in a place where, again, thinking I had it all together, but there was the illusion of control. And in fact, I was out of control because here I, in fact, was or had dumped all the water on the aircraft. And here I was in a situation where the captain had to talk to me, have a conversation with me. And so at that point, no one could use the lavatory where, in fact, we're coming from Denver. No one could use the lavatory. There was no water on the aircraft. So the toilets could not flush. There was no running water on the aircraft. All the water had dumped somewhere over the mountains as we were leaving Denver on our way back to Chicago. So there's my story. But nevertheless, that is the illusion of control. So again, we're still talking about the transactional leadership. That transactional leadership isn't built to last. So why do we love it? Do we love the transactional leader for the gifts that they offer? Usually hey, William, thanks for joining over on LinkedIn. Usually the transactional leader, he or she offers offers stability to a degree because you know exactly what you're getting from that transactional leader. But is it sustainable? Is it sustainable? And as I stated earlier, oftentimes we need these. William says, take your time, buddy. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And oftentimes we need these transactional leaders. And I started this, I started as I was preparing for this transactional leader versus that's a great question there, Jay. Thank you. Transactional leader versus um, the leader who is going to more so the what they call the integrated leader, the leader who understands the task, the leader who understands knows what needs to be done, the leader who is more empathetic to the needs of their subordinates. So oftentimes, again, I talk about a lot of times, Jay, in regards to this leadership is the integrated leadership, the integrated leader versus the traditional leader, and oftentimes the traditional leader versus the along with the traditional leader comes this transactional leader. And now obviously there's different styles of leadership, but that is hopefully offering some clarity in regards to the transactional leader versus the integrated leader, one who is poised from a position of understanding who he or she is. Uh, uh, Conversely, to the transactional leader who is uh, giving the business away. And again, as I stated earlier, the transactional leader is important. And as I was preparing for this conversation, as I was preparing for this conversation, uh, it's I thought automatically, well, this transactional leader is going to give the business away. But in fact, I had to kind of back up from that perspective, because in fact, the transactional leader is important. But the transactional leader has to be able to uh, put his or her foot down in regards to uh, the objective at hand. Because when he or she does not, we can find ourselves in a place where we're perpetually that transactional leader, and where's that we don't actually have loyalty. We don't actually have loyalty, similar to what Wayne had mentioned earlier. There's Zoom just shut out for some reason. Sorry about that. Our Zoom just closed out. But yeah, so we don't actually have loyalty in regards to the transactional leader, and but yet the people know that when they're looking for rewards or some kind of name recognition or some kind of attaboys, they know that they can definitely depend on the transactional leader. Okay. All right. The transactional leader cracks in the foundation. Here's why it's not sustainable. Again, it is important to understand that the transactional leader, it's necessary at times. It absolutely is necessary. And there are tons and tons of reasons why we all love the transactional leader. Tons and tons of reasons. The rewards, the name recognition, we can count on that leader. Peter says over on LinkedIn, who all likes transactional leaders? I do. I love transactional leaders, but in the sense of different types of organizations, I think it's important to know that, hey, we're all deal with transactional leaders from time to time. We're all that and I think in most cases, most of us, we're the transactional leader as well. And so we like the transactional leaders. I think we all do to a degree, but then we all at times become that transactional leader. But we also know that it's not sustainable. We also know that it's not sustainable. One of the challenges that the transactional leader meets with his subordinates. It says my notes here, it stifles creativity and innovation. That's one of the challenges that they come across. When the focus is solely on meeting predefined goals, there's little incentive to think outside of the box or take risk. The fear of punishment or mistakes can kill creativity. Absolutely, absolutely. So as a transactional leader, our challenge a lot of times is dealing with our subordinates. Hey, Fee over on Facebook, thank you for joining. The challenge is over in regards to the transactional leader, where he or she stifles the employees or the subordinates for creativity and innovation, is because he or she needs it now. They need the job to be done now. And it makes it very difficult for the subordinate to be able to think outside the box. It makes it very difficult for the subordinate to be creative for fear of punishment. Peter over here on LinkedIn says limitations, limited creativity, the focus on compliance, maintaining the status quo can stifle innovation. Innovation, creative problem solving, lack of intrinsic motivation. It doesn't foster a kind of deep engagement of loyalty that comes from intrinsic motivation, and ineffective for complex problems. Transactional leadership is less effective at resolving complex issues that require novel approaches to deep thought. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. There's a lot in that statement, Peter. Absolutely, and but here's the thing. Here's the thing. That is kind of what I was speaking to earlier in regards to, does the transactional leader have loyal employees, or is it the illusion of loyalty? The transactional leader can't pull, he can't access that space, as you just shared so nicely, Peter. Thank you for that comment. uh, Jeremy says over on LinkedIn, he says, do you believe that most fall in and out of this at some point? I feel uh, I feel I do, not in the same sense. Absolutely, Jeremy. I think, kind of what I was alluding to earlier. I think that we all fall into that space as the transactional leader. I think someone said over on LinkedIn at some point, man, we all, or was it Peter? I think I said, who doesn't like a transactional leader who offers rewards and for getting jobs done uh, effectively, or being efficient at getting an objective, completing an objective. Who doesn't like those different rewards? But uh, it's not, effective in all situations. It's not effective in all situations, and I think at some time the challenge with the transactional leader is that he or she needs to be able to will that thing in. And I think that once you've opened the door, a lot of times, again, we can enjoy the rewards, but once you've opened the door to uh to giving the rewards to your colleagues or your subordinates to complete different objectives and goals, uh it can be very difficult to close that door again. It can be very difficult to close that door. And yeah, it's very difficult to close that door. And again, I talked about my 2-year old, and obviously I know that we're not talking about 2-year olds, but the point of it is that when you have that door open as a leader, even as a parent, there are lots of parents that are, great parents, but and a lot of times they're offer incentives to their children to, such as their allowance. This is an incentive to get a particular task done, and we can we can just kind of just go overboard at some point, and even in crucial moments where the job that needs to be done It doesn't need a transactional leader. And so, in that sense, again, once that door is open as a transactional leader, it can be very difficult to close that door and not not know when to shut the door, and being able to discern that, hey, being a transactional leader right now, that's not at stake right now. I need to get the job done, and the employee or the subordinate needs to get the job done. So it's a lot. It's a lot that goes into this thing here, man. It's a lot that goes into it, and I think that, again, for us as leaders, all of us as leaders, whether you're a parent or leading an organization or just a few people or hundreds of people, the point of it is that we as leaders, we need to know that once you open that door in regards to the transactional leadership, being that transactional leader, it can be very difficult to shut that door. As Peter nicely said, with the list of different things there, it stifles creativity and innovation, and a whole list of things that he shared there as well. It erodes the motivation, intrinsic motivation, meaning that there's no motivation outside of just, there's no reason for me to do it other than the free, the rewards that I'm going to be getting. Fee King over here on Facebook, I don't want to dismiss your comment here. I want to acknowledge it. Fee King over here on Facebook, if she's still there, says, Curtis, I'm appreciating listening to the convo. I think we also speak to transactional relationships and friendships. I've been guilty of that, and it does not work. Absolutely, absolutely. I think at the crux of any kind of any style of leadership, at the crux of any style of leadership is relationships, and just as well as the transactional leader can offer rewards and name recognition. Again, you do this for me, I'll do this for you. It can absolutely happen on even on a personal level. We call transactional relationships, as Fee King over here on Facebook has so nicely said. We can apply that same concept or that same style of leadership to our relationships. So the leader is the leader in itself is not separate from the relationship. And I think we have to understand that the leader is not separate from the relationship. The relationship is the foundation for everything. But for the transactional leader, Peter over here on LinkedIn says, the impersonal deal making nature of this style limits opportunities in building deep, meaningful connections between leaders and employees, and this can lead to resentment, low morale, and the lack of loyalty over the long run. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I know I talk a lot about leadership, but this also applies on our personal level. It also applies on a personal level as well, much kind of like what Fee King over here on Facebook had just mentioned in regards to the transactional relationships. Now, it also applies on a personal level, because if you are a parent and you have had children, or you have children, and one child, you may have told your child no, and yet the child goes to the mother and the mother tells the child yes, or vice versa. Mom has told the child no, and you as a father, you tell the child yes. That causes conflict. That causes conflict. So as a transactional leader, we need to be prepared to understand the bigger picture. Again, we need to be prepared to use discernment and know when it is needed to be that transactional leader. And I think we all have been that transactional leader, perhaps even in transactional relationships as well. So it is important for us as leaders to know that that in the midst of leading people, leading organizations, leading our households, it's important for us to understand, again, use discernment. It's important to understand the long term and the short term effects of our decision making, of how we might make decisions as a leader. So if I'm giving this to my son, and I have not, or my daughter, and or again as parents or as leaders within an organization, if we're giving rewards to certain people, and as Peter said, it is absolutely going to affect the morale, much in a sense where it's going to affect the morale even at home within our own families. And that for me, many years ago, that was a big issue with me and my now ex-wife. That was a big issue because Peter over here on LinkedIn says personal negative effects limited personal growth, creativity, innovation, and initiative may be stifled since focus on compliance, dependence. Yeah, he's got a whole lot of stuff over here. But absolutely, Peter, all of that is true. Got a lot of stuff over there, Peter, for me to read. But that is absolutely true. And again, the long term effects of this transactional leader, again, using discernment, is that you can absolutely find yourself showing favoritism. And as Peter so nicely said over here on LinkedIn, that favoritism is going to affect the morale of the organization. It's going to give the illusion, as I kind of stated earlier, it's going to give the illusion that we are in control. And in fact, we're not in control. Again, there's a time and a place I believe there's a time and a place for the transactional leader. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a time and a place for the transactional leader. But uh, that time is not, uh, is going to be in every situation. And again, we have to use that discernment. For the transactional leader, it can be difficult for the transactional leader to motivate uh, his uh, his staff, his team. Very difficult for him or her to motivate his staff because he or she wants to uh, be prepared to entice them with some kind of reward or some kind of recognition or some sort that's going to get them to do the job. And as Peter said over here on LinkedIn, is that uh, there is it really deflates the morale for the colleague, for the team is at an all-time low. It's at an all-time low. So what must the transactional leader do in order to come out of this place? He or she must be prepared to, again, as I mentioned earlier, use discernment, recognizing where he or she is. Absolutely. Mike over here on LinkedIn. Mike says the transactional leader operates from a mind of scarcity, and how often do we do that as leaders? Again, in talking, even in working with our respective families. Again, leadership is not necessarily designated or dedicated to just uh, our careers or working with organizations, but they're also important to understand that we have to be leaders not only within those organizations, but also in our personal lives. And whether you have a family or not, it's important to understand that the leadership also applies to us personally, that leadership, and that we're not, uh, on a personal level, we're not quick to go for the short term goals, knowing that there are processes that life has to take us through. And when we are of that mindset of taking shortcuts, even in our own individual lives, again, being that transactional leader can also apply for us individually. So the scarcity mindset that Mike mentions is very interesting because even as a father who is a leader, a mother who is a leader in her own household, again, not to mention leading in an organization, that scarcity mindset is not necessary just from the lack of money, but it's also the lack of resources and knowing how to deal with that situation that you may be dealing with your child. It's the lack of resources that you have available. I talked a little while ago in regards to my daughter going through some things, and she would wake up just crying and basically looking for mom. Mom may have been at work or something like that. Hey, Marcia over on LinkedIn, mom may have been at work, but my baby girl would just wake up crying. And for me, my my limited resources, again, this scarcity thing that Mike mentioned over here on LinkedIn, is that I had limited resources on how to handle that. And through the limitations of my resources, I found myself getting angry and and getting angry for the fact, not necessarily at my daughter, but getting angry for the fact that I could not control the situation. And so that was the scarcity of my mindset. Again, not necessarily from the scarcity sense of looking at scarcity from the lack of money, but the scarcity mindset of resources on uh, uh, tangible or intangible resources that we have available to us in order to resolve a matter. So that's a great point there, Mike. Thank you for sharing that. Mike says he or she must navigate the Branchian space. I hope I've said that correctly. Determine Kairos outcomes in collaboration with other hyperdimensional synapse clicks and network. Yeah, Michael, you're gonna have to break that down for me, man. That sounds like it's above my pay grade, brother. Yeah, that sounds pretty educated, man. Wayne over here says over on LinkedIn, transactional behavior could spur on internal competition, fear, and strife. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It is a competitive nature. It does uh, produce a competitive nature within teams. Again, that favoritism that can absolutely show up when we're dealing with our teams, because ideally, in most cases, that transactional leader, he or she has locked in on uh, one employee or one team member or one subordinate that he or she knows that he or she can trust, that they can trust, and so they're typically going to be calling on that team member more often than not to get the task done. And so it could absolutely create a space of competition, a space of just not being good enough, uh, just a strife, as Wayne said over here on LinkedIn. So how does the transactional leader get out of this? How does he or she get out of this? I think most importantly, the transactional leader, and this includes myself, you have to be prepared to put your big boy pants on, because oftentimes, when you open the door to that transactional type of leadership, um, it can be difficult to close the door. You have to be prepared to know your audience. And even before we know our audience, we have to be prepared to look deeper within ourselves. And as Mike said over here on LinkedIn, there is there is a transactional leader operating from a place of scarcity. And because he or she is operating from that space of scarcity, he or she is limited on resources and on getting the task done and getting meeting the objective. And interesting enough, kind of what I was saying earlier, or I think what Peter may have said earlier, is that with the transactional leader, um, he or she stifles innovation. They stifle creativity, and and it's interesting because it's stifled in others because the transactional leader is limited on the resources on dealing with the matter. And so his go to or her go to is to deal with the matter from a place of offering rewards uh, uh, quickly to solve the problem. And, and really just a passive approach, a passive approach. And I think even as men in our own households, we can deal with matters from that perspective, from a passive approach, let alone in our various organizations from a passive approach. And we can, again, dealing out of a mindset of scarcity, uh, being limited on resources on how to solve a problem, we are in some cases not very effective in communicating sometimes. Jeremy says over here on LinkedIn, he says, Lord, only if you knew my dog right now, Curtis Brooks, my dog is extra tonight for real. I'm loving the show. He says over here, between the show in between loving attacks. Oh man, Jeremy, that's too funny, man. Absolutely, absolutely, that's funny. That's hilarious. But yeah, that's hilarious, man. But yeah, I think that as men, we can definitely approach approach leadership in that from that perspective. Uh, and and unfortunately, it is not a sustainable space or place to operate from. Uh, I talked about we're talking about how to get out of this space and how to change essentially. Again, once the door is open, it's very difficult to close that door. And secondly, we must be prepared to look within. And I think that's the bigger piece. We have to be prepared to look within and to find out where that scarcity mindset is coming from, because the likelihood of us, as we're operating within that scarcity mindset, we're essentially infringing on the rights of others and preventing them from showing up in the capacity that our team needs to show up in, and where they can actually be effective versus versus uh, operating from that same space which we're operating out of. Again, that scarcity mindset, as Mike mentioned over here on LinkedIn. So the transactional leader has to be prepared to challenge himself. He or she has to be prepared to challenge himself. And you might say, well, Curtis, how does he challenge himself? Well, the people, your team is going to challenge you, because much like I talked about earlier in dealing with my 2-year-old, oftentimes we go in with boundaries. And this is life in general, not just working with a 2-year-old, but oftentimes we go in with boundaries. We have those boundaries for a reason. and we can let um, the fear of the fear of not being enough, the fear of not having enough, as Mike mentioned, that scarcity mindset, not having enough resources, not feeling that we are enough. So for the transactional leader that has that perpetual door open, and now we're talking in a way of dealing with adults now. I know I spent a good part talking about my daughter, but the point of it is that even in dealing with our personal lives, this transactional leader can create transactional relationships, as Fee nicely said over here on Facebook. And through those transactional relationships, they absolutely don't work because at some point, even the transactional leader feels like he's being used. He can feel like he's being used. The the transactional leader, the transactional leader must understand his or her own limitations. And without understanding our own limitations or being prepared to to put those limitations out there in front of us. So, and here's the thing: it's not just enough to say, "Hey, I'm," to be aware of your from a sensory perspective, to be aware of your limitations. It's important to put those limitations on paper in front of us so that we can actually see them, or to even have conversations with people so that we can actually hear them. Because oftentimes, we know our deficiencies as people. A lot of times we know our own deficiencies, but to put those things in front of us or to even hear ourselves say those things, those are two different things and coming into a different reality. It's one thing to say, hey, okay, I'm aware of that, again, taking a mental note, but yet on a much larger scale, it's uh, a whole nother, I guess, different image, or creates a different picture when we can speak those things out loud and say, hey, you know what? That's mine. That thing is mine. I made a mistake, or again, whatever the case might be, acknowledging that thing. So more so than just speaking to ourselves and just being aware of it, but it's important that we are uh, uh, we're hearing our deficiencies in certain areas. Not only just again being self-aware, but we're hearing the deficiencies that we're dealing with. And when we can hear those deficiencies, we can do more than just take mental note of those things, but be prepared to change them. Peter over here on LinkedIn says, start with why. Why not, or just what? Peter says over here on LinkedIn. He says recognize more than just results. So as that transactional leader, we know that it is more than about getting results done, as Peter says over here on LinkedIn. He says delegate growth, not just efficiency. This is what Peter is saying over here on LinkedIn. Invite input instead of dictating. Excellent point. Excellent point. Balance accountability with development. He says, and celebrate collective wins, not just individual rewards. Absolutely, absolutely. All those things are absolutely very important. Wayne over here says the he says, interesting concept, Curtis. You said the transactional leader may feel used. Please expound. Well, yeah, that's exactly what I said. Well, because I think from a perspective, Wayne, that when the transactional leader looks up, in most cases, he or she may feel, obviously understand the job or task needs to be completed, and in doing so, obviously he or she is going to, as being that transactional leader, they're going to offer some kind of reward or name recognition, or some kind of incentive for the team to get the job done. But at the end of the day, it does not produce loyalty. It does not produce, I alluded to earlier, it is the illusion of control. And in fact, it is no control because there's no loyalty. We can control the people with the things that we may offer them, control the narrative to a degree in regards to the things that we're offering people to get the task, to complete the task. But in actuality, the people know that people understand how we operate as leaders. If you are that, if a person individual is that perpetual transactional leader, your team members or even a parent knows that, or excuse me, even a child knows that he or she can go to mom, or he or she can go to dad or go to their father, and that my dad is going to say yes. I know my mother is very strict with me, and likewise, even in the way of our different organizations, we have different team members that's going to connect with certain leaders because they know that, hey, certain leaders are easier, and much in the same way uh, with our transactional leaders. Our transactional leaders can absolutely understand where they're going to get the most bang for their buck, so to speak, as that transactional leader. And so he or she is going to be prepared to call upon certain team members to get the job done. So I hope that makes sense, Wayne. There are a lot of comments here. Wayne says, remember, there are two aspects to the transactional leadership. Punishment is the other side. Hard to win loyalty. Absolutely, absolutely. And this is the I believe this is part of that scarcity mindset that Mike mentioned earlier over here on LinkedIn, is that when you're dealing with the transactional leader, there's absolutely they're going to be the reverse piece of that. Is that if the reward is not big enough, because naturally people you might offer a team member $50 off the books or something, I don't know, or some kind of reward, and now today 50, or maybe tomorrow $50, or a week from now $50 not enough. And so how does that transactional leader respond? Does the transactional leader get angry, or is he ready to punish the team member because they're not responding with the reward that's being offered? So absolutely, there are going to be those negative effects of that transactional leader, is that, or that transactional leadership style of leadership, is that there's the punishment that comes with it. Absolutely, Wayne. Yeah. Peter says here, why transactional leaders can feel used, and it says one-sided relationships. Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, Endless quid pro quo, lack of authentic connections, burnout from Policing scarcity trap, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, there are several reasons why the transactional leadership leader can feel like they're being used. And it's just, again, no real connections, no real loyalty, no real friends, so to speak, because you we as transactional leaders, or even as parents work operating in that space, um, we can find it difficult to get our team to do things if we're not offering some kind of incentive for them to get the job done. So absolutely, there is a Mike says over here on LinkedIn, says we all seek to be seen, heard, most of all value doing that for the other. Once again, servant leadership. Once again, servant leadership, and lifts all boats, build trust, not ego. Absolutely, Michael. Absolutely, yeah, man. It is important that we all deserve to be, we all seek to be seen and heard and things of that nature. But I think we also have to be respect that those things absolutely come in time. But again, that is the nature of people. That is the nature of people who want to be, who are seeking to be seen. Uh, the leader himself, and sometimes, again, dealing with this transactional leader, the leader himself or her uh, is seeking to be seen as that effective leader, the leader that gets the job done. But in but on a larger picture, again, it is the illusion of control, where in fact that the transactional leader, I don't think the transactional leader is in control. I don't believe that the transactional leader is in control, especially if they're in most cases operating from a space of scarcity. They're in fact not in control. So something absolutely needs to be done pertaining to that. And as I stated earlier, once you, as a leader, open that door to that transactional style of leadership, it can be very difficult to close that door, because now you have, as an individual, we have our go-to, and sometimes we can get caught up in the routine or the habit of, or the motion of things that that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. We can get caught up in those things, and as we're getting caught up in those things, again, those things become our go-to. And when they become our go-to, we become limited and uh, uh, dealing with team members effectively in the way of leadership. All right. Mike says over here on LinkedIn, he says, egocentric energy is fleeting. Building trust creates long-term success and abundant mindset. Mike also says over here on LinkedIn, why is it not all about you? Mike says there is no I in team. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I think to your point, Michael, the transactional leader, essentially, he or she, they can easily make it about themselves. Absolutely, they can easily make it about themselves. Yeah, absolutely. Wayne, I like that. I like that what you said. Wayne says over here on LinkedIn, the leader is the assumed power broker in as a transactional leader. They aren't a victim to be used, but I'm open to think about this deeper. Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting, Wayne. But yeah, I would definitely, yeah, I definitely consider what you're saying. But I think, as I said earlier, that that for the transactional leader, man, it I think initially there's a, as you said, he or she operates as a power broker for sure. I agree with that. But at some point, even the power broker is going to be seeks authentic or seeks some kind of relationship, seeks people that he or she can trust in. And I think through all of their transactional or that their style of trends as a transactional leader, they can absolutely have their go-to person or team member, but it's not necessarily in most cases not necessarily built on loyalty. And because it's not built on loyalty, even for that transactional leader, I think that he or she is still, in most cases, we're defined by our relationship. And I think sometimes we like to think that relationships can there are the relationships at work, there are the relationships or there are professional relationships, and there are the personal relationships. But ideally, all of those things are kind of meshed into one. And how we, in most cases, operate from a personal perspective, we may assume a different position from a professional space. But how, in most cases, how long can we assume that mask, so to speak? How long can we hold that mask up? Yeah. Peter over here says, he's speaking to Wayne. He says, impossible to win loyalty. Transactional is not long term. Therefore, loyalty is impossible. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So I think, as Wayne said, there's the transactional leader operates from a space, as he said nicely over here, as a power broker. But on the same token, there is, as Peter said, and I agree with you, Peter, that there is no loyalty, and by nature, as people, we we seek relationships, and I think inwardly, uh, from a person that's uh, not coming from an authentic space, he or she has a tendency, or people can have a tendency to put relationships into certain compartments, and they know how to deal with people. We know how to deal with people on certain levels, whereas that we may tell one person, we may have a deeper conversations with one person, and yet not have may have surface level conversations with other people. But at some point, they're individuals in life. We're still seeking again deeper relationships, and even for the just relationships change as a whole. Relationships change. Period. It just will change. And so for the leader who can have deeper relationships or have a conversation with one person, a deeper conversation, one of their colleagues, or on a personal level, relationships are always changing, and I think that's just that's just kind of the kind of the way it is. And I think we have to be that loyal person. Initially, we have to be that loyal person to to um, to receive that loyalty. And as we are the loyal people, we'll meet more people. We'll connect with other people who are just as loyal. And again, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. So that's just kind of, I mean, excellent conversation, Wayne, and to everyone else, great comments here, guys. We've been on for uh, about an hour and a half now, guys. So I'm going to be prepared to call it quits here, guys. Again, excellent conversation. Kenny, Kenny over here on, or Kenneth over here on LinkedIn says that he is balancing relationships in this group. Awesome, Kenny. Awesome, Kenny. Thank you, sir, for balancing the relationships over in the LinkedIn group area there, comment section. So, but nevertheless, guys, it has been a great conversation. Thank you for your input. Thank you for all chiming in. Thank you for and help with this discussion. So I appreciate you all. Again, great comments. Thank you, Peter, for your comments, your lengthy comments as well. Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Mike, for the engagement. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, my good brother, Wayne. Thank you, Bill William Rochelle, known as Bill. Thank you for being a part of this conversation as well. And who else we got on here? Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Fee King over on Facebook. Thank you all for being a part of the conversation. And thank you, Sharito. Good morning to you from the Philippines. Sharito, thank you for joining, for being part of the conversation as well. I want to make sure that I have mentioned everyone who's been a part of the conversation. And for all of you who will watch the replay, again, share this out with others. Help them get the word about the transactional leader and all of the comments that were shared here. Again, thank you all for being a part of this conversation. It's been an awesome conversation. I want to say ciao for now. We'll talk with you later. Bye bye.